Hi, I'm Michael Newrock, and welcome to the market analysis video for December 8, 2017. I do appreciate you joining me, and I apologize for not producing these videos more frequently over the last few weeks. We have been extremely busy. We have new updates that have come out, new security updates, and it's overall been quite a hectic time. However, I'm pleased to advise that I am back on board as far as producing regular and as frequent as possible market analysis videos. Now, there is a new security alternative update being released in the next couple of days. 97 odd percent of members have found that the software has installed perfectly and totally usable. However, some have found issues. Now, I apologize for that. We were not able to detect this in our initial testing, and it's only through mass distribution that we've been able to determine these issues. The good news is that if you are one of those 2 to 3% of members that have had issues, for example, using a VPS, a virtual private server, or an Apple Mac, or in some cases, just a standard computer that for some reason has had issues with our primary security system, then you will have a new solution available for you very, very soon. We'll be announcing that by email. Alrighty, so let's get straight on with the charts. I'm going to go through the good, the bad, the ugly, take a look at what opportunities are available today and heading into the end of the market week. We'll look at the possibilities that could be occurring over the next few days as the market opens for next week. So starting with traditionally gold, currently we're in a downward trend now. It's went up for some time. Ben failed here, took a nice trend trade here, another swing trade here, and it's been going down ever since. So what we'll do is we'll just flick through the time frames here. This is the daily, and you can see this is a new daily trend trade of only about 1, 2, 3, 4 bars or 4 days. And if we look at the weekly, we can see a new weekly trend trade is occurring as well, or just occurred. So the risk is to the downside, which means that we're overall looking at more downward moves in gold. Now, whether it's a good time to get in right now, I don't think it is. Naturally, you only want to get in when a suitable trade signal has been produced by the Trend Profiteer software. Obviously, this one was a great one. This one was a good one as well. But for now, I would be waiting for a possible move upward, a possible correction against this downward move, and then maybe a swing downward. MACD is pretty stretched below the 0 line, so let's say hypothetically it came up to around here and then swung back down. Then there could be an opportunity to get in on this trade. So moving on, Euro is also moving down, not as significantly. It's been drifting, and things could change fairly quickly. Now, let's have a look at the daily charts. Okay, so here we can see the first start of a fail of the daily chart. Now, if it does pop up fairly dramatically, then we'll still be in a daily upward trend. But for now, we're seeing really the beginning of a possible daily downward trend. And on the weekly, it is indeterminate at this stage. It's specified as technically downward in both the trend and the swing, but you can see here that it's gone up quite dramatically. We had this correction, another move up, didn't quite make this high, and another correction down. It's still really early days as yet, so I'm pretty much on the sidelines of this pair. It could continue to go down. I'll change back to the 4-hour. But at the same time, if it moves back up, we get a nice crossover at a valid trend trade. We have at least 3 of the higher time frames changing to green, which is certainly a possibility. Maybe the weekly swing would change, and then the 4-hour swing, and maybe even the 4-hour trend on a trend trade that would occur. So we could actually find ourselves with 4 of the higher time frames pointing up. But for now, it is downward. But just keep an eye on this one, and be open to trading it either down or up, depending on the market conditions. So the pound is an interesting one because it fairly closely correlates to the euro. Obviously they. Well, I guess I could describe it as a bit of a seesaw. When the euro is going down, the pound's going up. When the pound's going down, the euro's going up. That often happens, and it's because of the euro pound, of course, which is the pairing of those two currencies. Currently, it's down, and that is helping the sterling. Now it's showing 4 out of 6 higher time frames pointing up. We could get a moving average crossover. The trend follower could change green, and we're already valid as far as the RSI is above the 50. The MACD is above the 0 line, and the stochastic has already changed over. So I'm watching this pair, and if we get a nice close and a valid trend trade, then there's not a huge amount of room in it, but let's say it closed here on a valid signal. We're looking at about 45 pips for the stop, just under the slow moving average, and about 75 to 85 pips thereabouts for this high. If the high is breached, then you could possibly see it move even higher. If we take a look at the daily, that's going to give us a better idea, and we can see more clearly that it actually is in a daily upward trend. If we move over to the weekly, we can see that technically it's an upward trend, but it's not a very strong upward trend. But nevertheless, since February of this year, it's been going upwards despite a couple of these corrections, 1, 2, 3. So right now we could be in for a new swing upwards, but once again, it's a little too early to tell. The daily is looking pretty bullish though, and of course this high here would be the one to look for. So currently that's about 185, 188 pips from the current price. So for sure, there could be a possibility for a 4-hour trend trade. If we look at it on the 1-hour, this is what I do occasionally. Is I look down on the shorter time frames, and you can see here the 1-hour trend trade has been going really nicely. If you took that, congratulations. We're already at about just over 50 pips with a height of about 70 pips or a peak of about 70 pips so far. Now, if you wanted to get in on this, there's 2 things you can do. You can wait for the 4-hour trend trade to occur back here, for the crossover to occur, for the trend follower to turn green, for all these indicators to line up. It's looking like a serious possibility of that occurring, and the higher time frames are already poised that way. Now, if you missed out on this 1-hour trend trade, then you could look for a swing up. Okay, so if we get a drifting down, this MACD is going to reflect that by drifting down, smaller red histograms, and ideally, if it's close to the the 0 line here, that's what I'm looking for. And if it changes then to a strong green histogram, that would give us a valid swing trade. Of course, with the RSI still above the 50, we're in the upward trend, and it could be a nice one because, if it came down to here, for example, and then, surged upwards to about here, you'd be looking at only about 25 pips for your stop. To these recent highs, 35 pips, and about 100 pips, close to 100 pips to these highs, and about 80, 90 pips to there. So traders are always looking at the recent high or the recent low, in this case the recent high, as a bit of a reference point of what they should be targeting. So this one has my attention. I like it, and I think there's real possibility there. So far, The pair that I'm looking at would be the pound going long on either a 1 hour upward swing or the 4 hour trend trade. Just bringing it back here. Okay, so moving on, euro pound. Euro pound is heavily to the downside. 6 out of 6 of the higher time frames are pointing down. That doesn't mean you should get in on the trade right now, because quite frankly, it's already moved quite a bit, and you're potentially buying the low. So if the pound goes up, that could drive the euro down. But if there's something else at play, for example, both currencies are pegged against the US dollar, then we could see a move in the euro moving up as well. So, here looking on the daily, we're in the midst of a daily downtrend again. I'll just get these out of the way. Tidy up your charts, always a good idea. Now, this is interesting. On the weekly chart, we have been consolidating a fair bit, and take a look at the price right now. It's sitting right on the support line here, or this low, which coincidentally was virtually the same as this, and also acted as a support for this move up. And you can see here again it was touched, and here it acted as resistance. So, levels are really important. Support levels are important. Resistance levels are important. Make sure that you take notice of these. Of course, we have the macro levels indicator that's available as part of the Trend Profiteer package purely as a bonus. You can use the existing macro levels in there, or you can enter in your own levels to just assist you on the charts for the different pairs that you're trading, because it's just too hard to keep track of. Always great to line it up on the chart. So that's the euro pound. No trade there at this stage, but watch this pair, because it could fall dramatically based on the weekly chart that we just saw. It's just a matter of getting in at the right time, and right now there's too much risk involved, and the stop is too big for the potential reward right now. Now, the Aussie is really interesting. I've been fairly bearish on the Aussie for quite a while, and just yesterday it breached this support low here, and I find it really interesting, because if we go onto the daily chart, we can see that once again breaching this low here, but there's still movement to the downside. Actually, if we bring it up on the weekly chart, you can see much clearer. Here you can see a fairly in progress trend trade to the downside already occurring. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days that it's been to the downside, and it's looking pretty bearish. So I'm looking at this support level over here, and you can see that it's within a couple of pips of this support level as well. So the market has seen that as a pretty important point. That's 71.51 or 71.50. These are just there as a guide, but if you look at the possibility there's about 345, 350 pips to the downside. So that's a nice bag of pips. Now, the other low to watch is this one here. It's about 180 pips, but I like it because there's some good distance to these different trades or levels before you need to be concerned about support and possible bounce back up. So if you took this trend trade, then fantastic. This one here is gone really nicely. It's about 81 pips in profit, and I would be doing everything that I could to lock in your pips, but don't follow too tightly, because there is real possibility of this trade moving down quite a bit further. Now, being the end of the week, there's a possibility that it could bounce up, particularly if there's weakness in the US dollar. We've got jobs figures coming out later on today. I'm not a big one for fundamentals. I really tend to focus just on the technicals, and I think it would have to be a big discrepancy to what the market is expecting for the US dollar to have a retracement to the downside. But we'll take a look at that in a moment. Now, if it does, then that could see the Aussie as well as the euro and the pound soaring. But at this stage, it's a matter of identifying those good trade setups and taking action when you see them. For now, there's no a trade setup occurring at this stage. So I would be looking at a possible retracement and getting back in on a swing downward. It's certainly bearish and a good opportunity to short, but it's just a matter of timing your opportunity there. Kiwi hasn't moved as far to the downside, but you can see it coming towards the support. And if it breaches this support level, then this is the next support zone here. So if it goes past 10 odd pips, it's really close, then we could see 40 odd pips to the downside. And again, if we look at it on the daily, I mean, of course, you've got the higher time frames here to be able to assist you with that. And but it is still great to go onto these high time frames. Daily just shows that it's been moving down and it's really at a low level. The weekly makes it a little bit more clear. We can see this consolidation occurring, and wow, what a coincidence. Once again, right at this support level. So if it breaches this support level and closes below this level, significantly or confidently, then that's a very good indication that we could see further moves to the downside. And looking at the low here, that is what the big players would be eyeing off. There's almost 600 pips to the downside for that ultimate low. Prior to that, about 450. Here's another level over here, about 130. But there's some good pips in this trade if you can catch it at a good time. Now, one way of doing that is being able to look at a chart on a shorter time frame. So, if we do get a retracement up on the 4 hour, then, drop it down to the 1 hour, maybe even the 15-minute, and see if you can short it that way. So both the Aussie and the Kiwi are looking downward in nature. The Aussie-Kiwi pair, now that has been consolidating for some time, and it's been doing a bit of a yo-yo. We had some nice falls in these swings. They happened straight away, but it still was a good result. We had buys up here and then a sell, down here, but it's been consolidating. So I'm out of the market on this particular one. I'd be more interested in either the Aussie or the Kiwi, but only on a suitable trade. If you took this one on the Kiwi, then hopefully by now you've locked in some pips, at least moved your stops to break even, or have a few pips locked in. And if it moves to the downside, then you're certainly in the money. Okay, Dollar-cad. Dollar-cad is bullish right now. 6 out of 6 high time frames are pointing up. It was just too far for the Goldilocks filter to actually trigger a trade. By the time it actually occurred, it was up around here. You can adjust these, and there's a bit of risk in this one because there was quite a distance there, quite a lot of pips for your stop. The reward is still, pretty good for the high. It was still at least a 1-to-1, and it's been moving upward, but it's not one that that I took at the time. But certainly, if you did, then congratulations. If we move on to the daily, we can see that it's been consolidating for quite some time, overall upward, but it's not the most confident of upward moves, and we need to see some real move upward. On the weekly, you can see each of these bars is a week. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. It's just been going sideways. Now, if we get a nice break upward, then what are we? We're about 40 pips from that high, 40, 50 pips. If it breaks, then you can expect to see, in my opinion, a lot more of a move to the upside. You can see a swing on this weekly chart is occurring. After 2 red histograms, it's turning green. If it closes this week on a green, then I would be continuing to be very bullish on the Dollar-cad. Stochastic has already changed over. RSI is above the 50. The HTFs, the higher time frames, are all pointing up. So let's say it breaks around here. There's still 850 pips to this high based on the weekly chart. And again, this is what the big players, the institutions, are looking at. They're not really looking at the short time frames when they're trading. They're looking at the higher time frames, and if they're trading on a trade and hold basis, these trades can go for weeks, if not months, and that's how they make the big money. So let's move on. Dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss has been going great to the upside. I actually called this in the chat room. If you haven't been in the chat room yet, when you log into the members area, click the big chat room button in the members dashboard, and come join me and other traders that are active in our community. It's a great place for sharing, for asking feedback, and for getting my thoughts on a daily basis. I am in there every day, and I pop in and out throughout the day. So come and join me, and I am calling a lot more trades in the chat room, so I'd love to see more participation in there. And just over the last couple of weeks, it's been fantastic as far as the trades that I've been calling. It's much easier for me to call a trade in the chat room, and it's much better for you to get that immediate information, because for example, putting a video together like this market analysis video, it takes time, not only to produce it, but then to upload it, and then by the time you actually see it, that information is still valuable, particularly on a over the next few days basis, but not necessarily information that you can act on straight away. So anyway, Dollar-cad was taken back over here, and currently this trade is about 105 pips in profit. Now, the second part of my trade isn't played. My first part actually got taken out here on this retracement, this white bar here. And after that, it continued to move up, and it's what I consider a free trade. It's now past these two highs here, which are again at a very close level. So the opportunity now is to another 60 odd pips just for this high. And if we look at the daily, we can see the daily is moving to the upside. Now, once we get this crossover, this trend arrow for the daily is going to change to green. And so you can see here on the daily, we're looking at around 80 pips, like with the 4-hour, but that's the high that we're aiming for. And if we look at the weekly, there's great opportunity still in this trade. There's your 80 pip high around there. But then beyond that, we've got a couple of hundred pips to this cluster here, this pivot high right here, 215 odd pips. And then right to about here, we've got about close to 400 pips. So it's a great trade. And I know some of you did take it in the chat room. If you're still holding it, then congratulations. Of course, you can cash out now, or you can trail it. I generally let my trades trail because my experience has shown me that you're not going to do as well as hard targets all the time. But, if the trade continues to move 200, 300, 500 pips, then you'll be glad that you trailed it and you didn't pull out early. There's a joke there somewhere, but I'll leave that for now. So Dollar Swiss, great trade. It's hit target 1, target 2, target 3. So now the stop loss trail is being activated. And a nice thing about the Trend Profiteer system with the trailing is you can change the trail anytime. You can actually change the targets anytime, mid-flight, on the fly, even after you've taken a trade, in other words. And so in this case, the trail was sitting on the parabolic SAR, but I don't want to trade by the parabolic SAR because it's way down here. So I'm trading now on the slow moving average. You can trail on the fast moving average as well. And further than that, you can actually set the trail to be right on the, in this case, slow moving average, or 5 or 10 pips below the slow moving average, which is what I've chosen to do, because if there's a correction down to that point, then you know, sometimes you survive the correction just by being a little under the slow moving average on a or fast moving average for that case, because both moving averages are tested. So I may look at that later on. If I see it struggle, then I may go into settings by clicking on the smiley face here and changing my trail for the second part of the trade from a slow moving average to the fast moving average. I'm locking in more pips immediately, and I'm still trailing the trade. All right, so dollar Swiss. This one I just took earlier today. I alerted it in the chat room as well. It's a little far from where I would normally, look at taking the trade. And in actual fact, it wasn't signaled as a valid trade because at the time the stochastic hadn't crossed over. But on the close of this bar, it will have closed. So what I did was I took a trade based on the go long manual command. If you haven't used the manual commands, they are awesome. You can do pending trades now for buy stops and sell stops, or you can have immediate market executions for buys with go long, or sells with go short. Now all the commands are in the quick reference manual. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. They are great to be able to take a trade. Maybe you've missed a trade. Maybe you didn't have remote access on at the time, and you may have missed it by a bar or two. If the price is still looking decent, you can take that trade manually and have the Trend Profiteer software manage your trade from that point on. So we're getting a nice movement on this this pair. I'm obviously bullish on the dollar yen, otherwise I wouldn't have taken it. 6 out of 6 of the higher time frames are pointing up. If we go to the daily, we can see I really like this. I really do. It's just changed to a daily trend trade. That's really important because it's one of those things. If you can catch the beginning of the trend, that's where you make the money. And let's look at the weekly. You can see after these 3 targets are hit, if they're hit, then there's plenty of room to move. We've got about 570 pips to this high here, and 1,200 pips. Now I'm not saying you're going to do that on one trade, but it can happen. But that's how you really want to think. The less you trade, as far as less trades that you take, and the better that you trail your trades, the better generally that you will go as a trader. And over trading is the death of many a trader. So it's good when you get a great trade, hold on to it, for dear life. So this one's looking good right now. We'll see what happens, but it's certainly charging upward, and I'm pretty confident with it hitting target. Euro yen's looking really nice too, even though it's downward in nature. But if you recall, it's drifting. It's not heavily down. So I like this pair because we're looking like we're going to get a really nice momentum, really sharp moving average crossover. Trend follower hasn't changed green yet, but if it does, in sync with the bar close and the moving average, then could be a good trade. Stochastic has already changed over. MACD is already green and above the 0 line. RSI is popping up above the 50 line. So it's all good, as my oldest daughter would says all the time. It's all good. So daily chart looking very, very sideways, isn't it? But let's have a look at the weekly, see if we can get more clarity. And on the weekly, you can see that despite the daily being sideways, that's this patch over here that we saw just before on the daily. You can see that it's just a blimp on the radar on an overall upward trend. Okay. Now you might have noticed on the weekly the arrows don't normally show, and that's because you certainly can do that, but it's just a matter of changing the settings so all of these templates are more suited to the 4-hour and downward. Now, on that note, if you want to trade the dailies, you can change these high time frames. Instead of being 4-hour, daily, weekly, you can have daily, weekly, monthly. So check out the quick reference guide for that. It explains exactly how to show how to change them. That it's it's easy to do, and if you are really into the shorter term time frames like the 15-minute, or dare I say the 5-minute, which I don't advise, but let's say you were on those shorter time frames, you can adjust it to say 1 hour, 4-hour, daily, something like that. Anything you want. It's all possible. There's a lot of flexibility built into the Trend Profiteer system. Okay, the pound yen. That is moving strongly to the upside. The horse is bolted in this case. It's looking like on close of bar, we've got a really nice moving average crossover. Trend follower has changed to green. RSI above the center line. MACD, nice steep incline of that histogram above the 0 line. Stochastic has already changed over. 6 out of 6 high time frames. We need to get past this high, but let's look at the daily, to see where we're at. Daily still extremely high. You've got this high and there's no coincidences in trading. It always works like this. Virtually the same. This high with this high here. So it's a little bit higher, but then there was this retracement. So not hugely significant, but it could be argued that because this high was higher than this high, there's the potential to move upward. And there certainly is, but I wouldn't use that too strongly. On the weekly here, certainly if it breaks and closes this week above this high, then it's broken a new high, and it'll hit the news feeds as the highest point since June of 2016. It's like, wow, this hasn't been this high for 18 months. That's a headline, and when you see headlines, you will often get more traders coming to the party, in this case to buy. Take a look at Bitcoin for an example, but I won't digress too much with that. But essentially it's herd mentality, and if you understand that the news feeds are there to pump out this information with those headlines for their own agenda, then on a herd mentality basis, it's often likely that you are going to get more people to the party on whatever direction it's going. If the headline is, this asset class is taking off, then you're going to get more and more people wanting to buy. And the same applies if, the headline is this asset class or this company, this share is going down the gurgler, then you'll get a lot more traders coming in, like vultures, to short it. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'll go more into psychology another time. But pound yen certainly looking upwards. Maybe next week there could be a good opportunity. If there's a correction, then you could look at a swing upward. But there's more room. The risk is to the upside. In other words, meaning there's a good opportunity to get in. Now, Aussie yen, not quite, because the Aussie has been battered down. It's very bearish at the moment. So 4 out of 6 of the high time frames are pointing up. I would be more on the sidelines on this. I'm not so interested. Now, I did actually take the trade and called it in the chat room here, and it went extremely well. Pretty damn good. So if we get another move to the upside, maybe, if everything is pointing upward. But right now there's more risk to the downside. Kiwi yen, a little bit more of an opportunity. It's bi-directional at this stage. We've got 3 green arrows, we've got 2 red arrows, and we've got 1 bi-directional. That means, for example, the daily trend is too close to call. The moving averages are right on top of each other. There's no real there's only a few pips between the yellow moving average and the gray moving average, or in other words, the fast moving average as opposed to the slow moving average. But the trend follower is just turning green. But I'm not going to harp on this one too much because it's just too indeterminate. Okay, so let's move on to the Swiss yen. This is a trade that I'm not too interested in at this stage. If we do get more movement upward, I may be interested in it. We've got a nice recent high here. Price is telling us that it's already surpassing the slow-moving average. If it passes this parabolic SAR dot, then we could be in for a good move to the upside. So I'll certainly take a look at it later on. Let's say it closed here, a valid trend trade was formed, then it could present a really good opportunity, 30 to 40 pips maybe for your stop, and over 100 pips to this recent high, which if you were a trader, professional trader, and you're looking at that recent high, you're thinking to yourself, there's a good opportunity to be had, and there's a good a chance that price will retest this recent high. Okay, CAD yen also indeterminate at this stage. A swing down, and then it could be a good opportunity to short it because the H4 swing would turn to red, possibly even the daily swing. But at this stage, NC MACD is already below the zero line, so there could be a good opportunity to short. Having said that, if it continues to move upward, could be another opportunity to the upside, but no trade at this stage. Euro Aussie I called in the chat room. It didn't really go too high. It did make profit. These are the points where the two parts of the trade were taken out for profit. If we get a move to the upside, a swing upwards, then we could see a move upward. I actually entered the trade again on a manual basis here. Probably shouldn't have. It's a bit of a no-no because there was no valid trend trade. But after I saw this move upward, I took a bit of a chance on it. So it's probably not the thing that I should be talking to you guys about. But there's still an opportunity to move to the upside. Sadly, over the last 3 or 4 bars, it's been moving nowhere, just sideways. So it proves my point of waiting for the signal before taking a trade. But I'm sticking with it at this stage because of the previous win as well. If we do get a move upward, then it could certainly move quite a bit higher. Upwards. I'm really eyeing this high off, which is about 95 pips away. And obviously beyond. Now, if we go to the daily chart, we can see here that it's still fully fledged in a daily move. And if we look at the weekly, it's been moving upward, and we've had some recent high moves, so plenty of room to the upside for this trade. So I'm willing to take the chance on this, but I do not recommend that you do. If you see a move to the upside, a valid one, a setup, then maybe there's an opportunity there. Pound Aussie I called in the chat room earlier this week. See if you're not in the chat room, see how much you're missing. It's actually been pretty pretty cool. The trades have been spot on. I do my best. Obviously, I'm only as good as my reputation, and the trader's reputation is only as good as their last trade. There's always a risk there, but I like to share with you guys, and I believe that your success is my success. By showing you the trades that I like the look of, which normally I don't get it right all the time, and sometimes unexpected things happen. My hope is that it's going to make better traders out of a lot of you, and that's just a win-win for everyone. So anyway, I called this earlier in the week. It's surpassed target one. It's only actually in the 4-hour. It was only yesterday, I think. So this has gone phenomenally. It was a pretty funny trade actually, because you see the trade that it was actually signaled on. It went right up to the target, and like a couple of pips short of it, started sinking back. That's when, and then went right against me down to here. it was only about 20, 30 pips from being taken out. It's that time where it's easy to think, gee, that there's some grand conspiracy against you, but of course that's not the case. And it's just a matter of sticking to your guns. Now, I was pretty confident with it because, it had been moving upward pretty strongly on this 4-hour chart, as well as the daily and weekly, and we'll take a look at that in a second. 6 out of 6 are pointing up. Anyway, the very next bar, it surged upward, hit target 1, almost hit target 2. Next bar, hit target 2 and target 3. And this is a dream run, apart from that annoyance of that first bar. So both trades are in play. Both trades are being managed independently. I can change the settings for the trail at any time that I wish. So let's look at what I'm sitting on here. On the daily, very strong move to the upside. It's really progressed a lot from its early stages. But on the weekly, this is the thing that really interests me, because we've passed this recent high, and there's lots of blank space here. There's no other highs to test. Maybe this level here will act as possible resistance, but that is still 320 pips away, right? And the one that if it does break through there, there's 2,500, almost 2,400 pips. So this is one of those, trades that you really want to hold for as long as possible. I'm not saying it'll go that way. And if it doesn't, what would I do? Well, hang on, we'll just take a look. Currently, it's 170 pips in profit. If I want to cash out now, I can do that. If I want to tighten my stops, I can do that. And if it corrected and moved against me, wouldn't be a huge surprise, disappointing. I'd like to lock in as many pips as I could. But see how high the MACD is above the 0 line? What I would do is then immediately look or wait and look for a swing trade to the upside and be right back in there. So right now, if you took that trade, then congratulations. And once again, I encourage you, if you haven't been in the chat room, to get in there. You don't have to participate, but just come on along and join us in the chat room. It's a great opportunity for you to to benefit in a bunch of different ways. Euro Kiwi, I just took this on the last bar. Hasn't really been doing much. Bit of a consolidation here, but I am taking the punt, for lack of a better word, that we're going to get a swing up. If we do get a swing up, then we could see a real rally to the upside, and there's plenty of room here. The other reason, why did I take it? Well, there's about 50 pips for your stop, and around 230 pips to the most significant recent high. Here's another point, 150 pips. I mean, I'll take that every day of the week. So Euro Kiwi, I'm obviously bullish on that. Pound Kiwi, looking upward as well. I chose not to take that at the time. If we look at the daily, and we can see a really strong upward move, and the weekly, certainly this is a really good trade as well. It's just that for me, it was too far away. The horse had already bolted. If we look at it from here, it was about 220 pips for the stop, but it was only about 110 pips to this high. That's why I didn't take it. Now, when would I take this trade? Well, if it corrected, let's say it moved down to about here, MACD started changing to red histograms, it got to about here, and then it moves upward, then it's likely that the stop would only be about 80 pips, and the reward is about 220 pips, so a total reversal. So you've got to, not say yes to every trade. The reward has got to be there, and the risk reward has got to be there. In other words, small risk, big reward. You never want to get into a trade where there's a big risk for a small reward. That just doesn't make sense, and that is total gambling. I mean, it may go in your favor, but you don't need a lot of them to go wrong for you to be in trouble. This one, look for a small a swing upward after a bit of a retracement if that occurs, or drop down to a 1 hour trade and see if you can find a trade there. Aussie CAD, no trade there. Kiwi CAD, if we get a move on the Kiwi, then it's possible. I'm not really interested because the Kiwi's under pressure as well. So I'd be more inclined to look at possible shorts of these next week. But, it's just too far in the future to talk about at this stage. EuroCAD, well, if we get a move on the euro, then there could be a possibility. This is a nice example of the histograms just drifting down, although usually I like to see them correct a little bit more. But this is okay. They're consolidating. Stochastic is already above the white, above the blue. RSI is above the 50 line. 5 out of 6 are pointing up. I mean, if we get a swing upward, this histogram is going to turn green. If it pops up significantly or decently and it's above the signal line, even better. And, there could be, well, the risk reward's pretty good. Let's say it swung to about here. We're looking at about 100 pips. For the stops, so use low lot sizes. On some of these pairs, you're going to find that the stops are a lot bigger, but the targets are also a lot bigger as well. So in this case, around 200 pips. So 100 pips risk for your stop, 200 pips reward for your profit. Okay, that's 1 to 2. Or another way of looking at it is the reward multiplier is 2. It's 2 times bigger than the risk. So EuroCAD might be a possibility. Pound CAD better, and I called this in the trader chat room earlier in the week, well, only a couple of days ago, or maybe this was yesterday as well. I think it actually was yesterday. It's been a bit of a blur. There's been a lot of trades that have been talked about and called, posted in the chat room, and I'm pleased to say that. Well, I think 100% of them have been winners this week. Over the last couple of weeks, virtually 100% of them. But not to brag, but I'm just trying to help. So Pound CAD, really good trade. It is currently sitting at about 150 pips, nothing to sneeze at. First part of my trade was taken out. You can see it right here. Okay, and that's just the breaks, and that's why I like trading 2 parts of the trade. Incidentally, you can change the percentage of the lots that you're using on the first part and the second part. I usually break them up 50-50, but you can have 20-80, 30-70, 40-60, 60-40, 70-30. In other words, you can place more lots on the first part than the second part, or vice versa, less lots on the first part and more lots in the second part, just depending how you want to trade. There is a guide to that. So check it out in the members area. And if you haven't already, please go through the material, study hard. There's a lot of information there. Don't expect results overnight. On this pair, we're looking at about 130 pips to the upside. That's on top of the 150 pips that's already there. So around 280 pips. So I'm not saying that it'll continue to go up. It may not. But at this stage, it's looking pretty damn good. I changed this trail as well from the parabolic SAR because there's no point. It's way below the entry, and slow moving average was no point either. So I chose the fast moving average in the second part of the trade, and the Trend Profiteer Expert Advisor has the flexibility to do that. Yeah, Pound CAD, great trade. If it does retrace, sad for me, but good for you if you're not already in the trade. You might be able to pick up a swing trade to the upside. Plenty of opportunities still in this trade. Okay, Aussie Swiss, no trade there for me. Kiwi Swiss, I'm just going to cruise through these last ones because I don't really see anything in them. CAD Swiss, look, if you get a move down, then possibly. But right now, 4 out of 6 are pointing up of the higher time frame, so I wouldn't be in that trade. Euro Swiss, no trade there for me. Pound Swiss is already gone, and that's all for today. So I hope you've got some insight into how I think and the type of trades that I'm looking at. I'll just park it back on the Aussie because I am an Aussie. And I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to bring back live webinars shortly, more than likely in the new year. It's only days away from Christmas. I don't know about you, but I've been in charge of Christmas presents on top of everything else as well, being the IT guy in the house, and a very exciting time. Now, just talking about that, you can expect lower liquidity in the markets, which means that there is the potential for greater moves, but it's not a really safe time to trade. Now, leading up to it, we still got quite a few days of decent trading left, so I'm excited about opportunities that are coming up next week. The following week, as it gets close to the Christmas, you want to kind of start winding down your positions and slowing down trading. Of course, Christmas New Year week is there's a couple of days there where you can trade, but not really the wisest time to get into it. And then the new year, it's only around the corner. I think it's going to be an incredibly exciting year with 2018 upon us. I think there's some amazing opportunities in the marketplace and some great opportunities, obviously, to get a lot of pips over the year. So without going on any further, thank you once again. Come join me in the Trader chat room. Till next time, good trading, live well, and I'll see you soon.